All right, so we are at Go Math Unit 3, Lesson 9, and today we're going to be looking at the distance between two objects using a coordinate grid, and we're going to be talking about absolute value to do this. So now we've looked at absolute value in previous lessons as the distance to zero. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by identifying two locations. So for example, here and here. Let's start just by taking this very simply. So identifying these two locations, and let's go ahead and give them an address. So I know I'm going to run and then jump in quadrant 1, positive 2, positive 2, 2, 2, right? If I'm going negative over here, which will be in quadrant 2, negative, positive, I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3, and then go up 1, 2. So this is negative 3, positive 2. All right, so I have a negative 3, positive 2, and I have a positive 2, positive 2. And if I were here and I wanted to get to my friend's house here, how far would I go? Well, you might say, well, this is negative 3, so I'm going to go negative 3. And this is positive 2, so I'm going to go positive 2. But if I just type that into a calculator, negative 3 plus positive 2, that's going to give me negative 1. And that doesn't really seem like the correct answer, which is why I need absolute value. Because if I'm at negative 3 and then I go positive 2, I still find myself at negative 1. So I want the absolute value. This is the distance to 0. In other words, I'm 3 away from 0 here, right? 1, 2, 3. So absolute value, the distance to 0. I'm 3 away from 0 here, and I'm 2 away from 0 here. So when I put those two together, I find that the unit, the distance between there, is 5. So if I'm here and my friend's here, and this is Main Street in town, I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks away. Now I can count them, sure, if I want a coordinate grid. But if I'm looking up here, how far away are they? Well, if I'm comparing these two, I know that 2 and 2, they're the same. I'm going to be on this line. That's not going to change anything. So I'm not moving and then moving. Because if I move this down, I would have to go 5 blocks plus one more block, that'd be 6 blocks. But they're the same number, so I'm not moving. I'm on the same line here. My question is, how do I go from positive 2 to negative 3? How far are they? And if I had a number line, I could count that. Sure, I could start at negative 2, or positive 2, and I could make my way down. But when I add them together, the distance, the total distance, I need the distance to 0 for both. So I'm going to be adding the absolute value. And that is positive 3 plus positive 2. So I know that these are 5 blocks away. Again, if I wanted to move this somewhere else, and I would change this, I would add the absolute value of the x numbers, and then the absolute value of the y numbers. So now let's change this and take a look at what that might look like here. I'm going to give myself this question right here. And I'm looking at the coordinates of the points. So I need to find the distance between point A and point B. And I'm going to go ahead and move my controller over here. And I'm looking at point A, which is negative 9, negative 6. That's point A. And I need point B, which would be right here. And point B is at negative 4, negative 6. Now, I can see, just like in our example, that 6 is the same. They're right here on the same line. So I would need to know, since they're in the same quadrant, how far away are they? Well, if I took negative 9 and I went to negative 4, I would find that they're 5 away. I'm not adding because I'm not going to 0 and then continuing on. So I'm not going to add. When they're in the same quadrant, I'm going to subtract. I could easily count from negative 9 to negative 4 and find that it's 5 away. Or if I looked at the absolute value, I'm taking 9 away from 0, and that gets me to this point, and then I want to take away the difference to negative 4. And it's absolute value, right? Because once I start adding and subtracting negative numbers, this changes. But I'm looking just at distance right now. So if I'm coming all the way to 9 here, erase it so you can see, and I want to take away this distance, so I want to see how far away they are. I'm looking in relation to 0, so it's absolute value. I'm going to subtract when they're in the same quadrant. Because again, I'm all the way to 9, and then I want to take away that 4 and see what's still missing. That chunk that's missing, that's absolute value, that'll get me to 5. So when I'm comparing the distance for two things, or I'm looking at the distance between two things, on a coordinate grid, absolute value can really help me. If I have the grid, by all means, I can count each of my lines. But if I really start to step back and look at what patterns I can see, when they're in the same quadrant, so they're both negatives or they're both positives, I can subtract them. But if I'm going all the way to 0 and then some more, I want to add again. And I want to make sure that I'm using absolute value so that it doesn't trick my calculator into thinking I'm going somewhere else.